so we're going to call the curriculum meeting to order. Tonight we are kind of recalibrating. This is a new cycle. Stacy's new to the committee. And so what I've asked Jason and Pam to do is kind of just do an overview of what their office does. I also want to go through an overview of what our role as committee members is. And then Lee's gonna talk to us about some of the opportunities that are happening at Lincoln. So just to kind of lay that groundwork as we recalibrate and come in semi-new to this, our committee meets typically once a month. And what you'll always notice on the agenda is in parentheses after the items, it will tell us, is this an informational piece or is this an action piece? So typically, I get together with Jason and Pam the week before and we discuss what are some of the things that are happening in the district, and we map it out. We did that for a year this past year. In September, we need to talk about this. October, we need to talk about this, and then other things as they arise. And so oftentimes for some of those informational pieces, what you'll see are things like literacy updates, math updates, when we're deploying assessments or surveys and get an update about how that's going. We'll talk oftentimes about some of the annual reporting pieces that need to go to DPI. We've had a couple of discussions about technology, as that was really timely during COVID. So a lot of those informative pieces we'll talk and discuss, but won't have necessarily action associated with them. But there are times where you will see action after some of those agenda items, and typically that's when we potentially need to spend some money. That may mean a field trip. We've had field trips to France for the French Club, or Chicago for a band trip. So there's a variety of those things where we are spending the money out of those budgets and need to approve that as a committee and then bring that to the greater board. Sometimes we'll be posed with professional development opportunities that again use those funds, and so those are action items that we would need to also approve or disapprove, depending on how the discussion goes. And then of course, we do occasionally have some new courses integrated, particularly at the middle and high school levels, and then some deletions. Everything kind of has a cycle, and so oftentimes Lee will come or Corey or Lance and talk about those courses and wanting to add or delete those to the regimen that would be available. And typically that's a November, December discussion, because those will be offered then in the catalog to choose. So that's kind of that distinguishing point in our agendas. The other thing that this committee does that we haven't done over the past year is what we call a curriculum walk, where we go and visit a school. And so typically that's about an hour where we'll go in and we'll see what some of the classrooms are doing. We'll talk with some of the teachers or the principals and really get a feel for the culture of those individual schools. Again, we didn't do that this year, given the pandemic, but we will be reinstituting those. September, October, we'll let people kind of get settled in, and then we'll start scheduling those. And we can schedule those out so that you have the date on the calendar and set those aside. So be prepared for that as we inch towards fall a little bit closer. So with that laid out there, any questions about any of that? Okay, so I've talked enough. I'm going to turn it over to you, Lee. You're next.
Appreciate the invitation, just to kind of, and it's good that it's kind of some information sharing too. So at Lincoln, we often talk about our heart of what we do is to try to make sure that our kids, when they leave our harbor, are ready for what's next. And for us, it equates a lot to what we're doing to help them become college and career ready, as we call it. So we have a number of irons in the fire, so to speak, around those things right now. And just kind of wanted to give you a brief overview of what some of those are and what we've been working on and how they are working. I provided you with a handout this evening entitled LHS Early College and Career Readiness Report. This school year, we began a program called Rising Phoenix, which is a program that we work in partnership with UWGB at Manitowoc, where 25 of our current juniors enrolled in a dual enrollment opportunity where they will essentially attend UWGB and Lincoln High School at the same time. Primarily, their load of courses are from UWGB, where they're earning credit for those courses towards an associate's degree, while they are also earning Lincoln High School credit. And so that was, of course, something that we want to keep you kind of in the loop on. Our first cohort had 25 students, again, in the midst of a pandemic with virtual learning and all things. 22 out of the 25 original students are still in the program. We had a couple of students that decided to bow out. One of the students, I think, just kind of wanted to come back to Lincoln, felt like they weren't getting the full high school thing. Then we had a couple that were struggling with some things with the pandemic and distance learning, and made a choice to not continue. But all in all, the 22 out of the 25 that are still in the program, we did have a couple of students that were on wait lists, so we were able to put those into the program to replace them. And in the first semester of learning, they earned 245 college credits collectively. They had an average grade point average of 3.16, and they sort of have a coach that works with them very closely at UWGB, who anecdotally would tell me that the professors at UWGB would be very complimentary of our students for being their age and not only keeping up with the coursework, but also excelling to the point where they were some of their shining stars. So it's super exciting. We did some informational sessions to start cohort 2 with next year's juniors. And we had a total of 24 of 25 spots accepted. With there are anticipating there are 2 other applications still out, so they're anticipating being able to put in the 25th student. According to the report from Sam Post, who is our coach, most of our kids are on track to earn the associate's degree. I will say that some of our kids choose to take band or some of the other courses at Lincoln still. So they'll have a course or 2 still at our school. And if they do that, sometimes the schedule doesn't allow them to take quite the full load that they want to stay on pace. But some of those kids are just they don't necessarily care that they earn the associates. They just are happy and thankful for the opportunity to earn as many credits as they can as they move forward. Many of these students still remain active in our clubs and organizations, sports. So they kind of remain part of our fabric at our school, but still, mostly attending college. So that was a really positive first semester. Something that I brought to you, I think I lose track of the months right now, but I think it was fall maybe. We talked about College Here and Now. This is an opportunity in a partnership that we're working really closely with LTC. And they've done this in a couple of other schools, Kiel and Sheboygan. And what it is basically is an opportunity for our kids to take some computer science courses and earn an associate's degree in that area, specifically around computer science and technology. It is really cool because they're coming in and they're going to revamp one of our labs into a state-of-the-art lab that they would have at their location. We had the first 2 courses in the program, as you can see here. We generated some strong student interest. We have 69 students signed up to take web design and 81 for our computer programming and video game design. So what that essentially means is nearly 150 students are enrolled in taking this course at Lincoln High School, part of their school day, where they will earn college credits at LTC for this program. Then there's also opportunities for them to continue on in their high school career. This will be a program where we can start our students as sophomores in so that they earn their equivalency by the end of their high school career. Some of these kids that are doing this won't be able to take advantage of that because it's new and they're like juniors and seniors and just wanting to get some credit out of it. And so they're able to do that for next year. So they're really excited. The people at LTC have been fantastic working with them. They've been very supportive in helping us set up our instructor so that they're ready to go teaching. And we actually had the first 2 courses of this already on our books. So you'll see it come to you, but potentially, but we're going to try to match the name of the course up to the LTC course so that the names are the same and it's not confusing for anyone. So that's kind of where we are with the college here and now. With those conversations, we've also started conversations recently in the area of culinary arts and public safety, which is very interesting because there's no one certified to teach public safety at Lincoln High School. So that's going to be a true partnership with our local government, which we are beginning to talk. So firstly, the culinary folks, our department leader in CTE area hooked up the culinary folks at LTC with our chef at school, Mike Hoffman, and they've been in the beginning stages of discussing how our curriculums align so that a similar thing can take place in culinary arts that we're doing in the computer science area. So that's a real positive thing moving forward. We're also taking some steps this summer in the culinary area. There was a grant that we received, some grant money to update some of the things in our kitchen area to make it a little more industrial-like for those kids to get that experience. And that's taking place over the summer. The public safety is an interesting one. We got a call from the fire chief, Todd Blazer, the city of Manitowoc, who said, never thought we'd be in this position, but we have a lot of folks retiring. And, we need to think about our future. And there's not a lot of people, it seems, at least going into this field. And LTC, of course, offers some public safety coursework. And so the vision right now in the initial conversation is to find out or figure out how we can offer, there's 3 courses that can get kids a certificate, not for EMS, I think it's called like EMR, I think, or something. Yeah. I don't even know what it stands for, but in the end, the kids could get those 3 courses taken at Lincoln for their credit there and earn a certificate that would basically set them up to be on their way for an EMS sort of certificate that they could possibly do. The cool part of this one is, as I mentioned, none of our teachers teach this. So this would be some of our local firefighters or police officers who would be able to come in and work with our kids potentially as the instructors of the course. And so again, we're in the initial conversations. We've sort of visioned this out and how it could look. I'm scheduled to meet with the chief in June to follow up, and hopefully we can have something to bring to you this fall around that exciting area. The other way that we really try to help kids is with their employability skills and work experience. And so as you can see here, we currently have 72 of our students involved in the Youth Apprenticeship Program, which really partners with local businesses and gets our kids opportunities to work a good number of hours with a mentor and with a company in our area as an employee, and also there's curriculum that goes along with it in terms of their employability skills in that area. We less than a decade ago had in the area of in the 40s and 50s, and we're up into the 70s now. Bonnie Przeniak tells me that we already have like 68 signed up for next year, which at this point of the year is a really good place to be. We may even be pushing the upper 70s to close to 80 for next year. Those interviews have been taking place and our kids have been being placed into those positions for next year. School to work is another area. I don't know, 7 years or so ago, there was like 30 or 40 kids in our school to work course. We currently have 159 students. that are signed up in that course that are working in jobs in our community and going along with an employability skills curriculum from the school. And Ashley Waniger does a great job with that program, runs that with those kids. And when you think about the totality of our school, and we talk about what our mission is to have these kids ready, 30% of our students are currently working in either a Y or work experience job as juniors and seniors, which I think is something that we should applaud. Because, and say, well, should it be higher? Well, it depends, because if you're someone who's prepping to go to, let's say, if you already know you're going to go to a 4-year school, we do have some 4-year folks that do YA because they can go into finance or they can go into some of those different fields, get some experience to know, hey, before they even start, is this really the path for me? And so it's been an awesome growth, and those ladies do a great job in that office, and we're just really proud of the work that our kids are doing in our community too, because we also then, of course, and some of you even get invited to our things like our mock interviews and things associated with that. And it really gives our kids a chance to shine to our local employers who, by the way, manufacturers and people will tell me, I'd rather hire your kids than generally people off the street. So it's a huge compliment to the work that everybody's doing in this area. We'll continue to grow it. We'll continue to find ways to improve. There's always things we can do differently and better, but we're really proud of that.
We do have a kind of an estimate as to how many kids graduate and go straight into the workforce because of that experience at all. Do you have a handful that do that? Or? I
would have to look, but I can find that for you because we keep stats on that. I could tell you who goes to 4 and who enters the workforce.
I'm just kind of curious.
I can tell you right now that our kids are telling me, I'm lined up to go here, make $18 an hour. I'm lined up to go here. So there are some kids doing that right now. And I would say I'm hearing more of that talk in the last year and a half than I had in the previous year and a half. So I think they're doing a good job. We're having folks reach out all the time. In fact, we're recently had a nice offer from one of our manufacturers to potentially donate some equipment. So that might be coming your way too here once we take a look at what it is and if our facilities can handle it and such. But there's just been a tremendous amount of community support to trying to help give our kids the opportunities to learn some of those skills that are specific to their areas prior to them getting out for those kids who do want to go right into the workforce.
Sure. Great opportunity.
Yeah, the last thing on the bullet is several years ago, there was a program called Upward Bound. Sort of ended. Right now, LTC is working on a grant that may fund this program for the next several years. We were contacted by Mr. Herman from LTC to help them with that grant, as we would be one of the target schools that would benefit from this. In a nutshell, Upward Bound is really a program that would help some of our socioeconomically challenged students to get some experience and learn more about what 4-year college and other opportunities outside of school could be for them when they end their time at Lincoln. And we're in the initial stages. We have a meeting set up next week with the school counselor, Mr. Herman, myself, and one of our teachers, because they're in the midst of the grant writing, and we're going to help a little bit with some support on that front, because we would, of course, be, our kids would be the ones benefiting if that grant would come to fruition. A staff member from LTC would work with our staff in the counseling center and our school to work office, coordinate these opportunities for our kids if and when that grant is awarded. So those are the prepared updates I have. I would be willing to take any questions or comments that you have.
I just want to say this is really great work, and I know I'm a little partial, but I mean, just the conglomeration of all of it together with the YA and working with the colleges in the area, I think it's great stuff. And it's really preparing folks for any pathway.
Yes.
Right?
That's
It's not just one or
Correct.
another or this one. It's really the whole.
It's not our job to push. It's our job to help show them what paths they have for them and help support them on their journey there.
Fantastic.
What is the application process like for the Rising Phoenix?
So they have grades, a teacher recommendation. There's some forms that folks have to fill out. They have some criteria that they use, which gives preference to students who would be first generation college students or students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. We have several of the 25 students who don't meet those requirements, but they also take those into consideration. UWGB makes all the decisions around who's accepted or not. Our staff mainly helps shepherd our kids through that process and make sure they have their paperwork filled out properly, make sure that they're, we help identify kids who we think might be good candidates for the program, because we certainly want them to succeed with it. And going to college full time as a 16-year-old I'm not so sure I would have been ready for that, right? So it takes the right kids, but we have them and they're doing well. So it's really
Who
good.
incurs the cost of that, like for their credits and so forth? How does that work?
It works through the early college program. Mark probably knows more about how this works or not, but essentially the district gets a reduced rate for those credits. So when our kids go to LTC or UWGB as an example, we have a group of kids that just take calculus there, like the next level after calculus. Since we don't offer that class, they can go there and take it. The district covers the costs. It's part of the state program. This is basically an extension of that, saying that the district at a very reduced rate pays the tuition for the students through the early college state program. And we're reimbursed also a certain percentage of that, I believe.
I would say it's about $100 per credit that it costs.
Okay.
And then I would say that we probably get reimbursed depends a little bit on the state's allocation, but somewhere between $20 and $25 per credit will get reimbursed. And then the rest would be the district. Now, LTC and UWGB has interest in the program continuing, so we have some memorandums of understanding in terms of how the credit are, we're only paying for courses that they're taking. They've given us a commitment for longevity. There's some of those pieces, but the district does incur an expense. It's, in my opinion, an investment in our kids. Like we're saying, we're going to pay for this because it eliminates any kind of barriers that might exist, and it allows kids to have the opportunity. So, we reallocate our resources. I would say it's probably $50,000 a year that we probably have earmarked specifically for after reimbursements for college here now and Rising.
And then I would also say too, in addition to the investments for those kids with potential barriers, it's important for Manitowoc and the Lakeshore area to have higher ed here. And being a supporter of that in general, I think is a very important thing for the health of our community, as an aside to that as well.
That's exciting stuff. As a graduate of UWGB myself too, it's cool to have that connection.
Been asked to be on their UW campus advisory, whatever here. And I've been very impressed with their strategic thinking. I heard a stat that they're one of the few UW schools in this pandemic year that actually grew in enrollment. And I think it's to their creative ideas like this that have helped them along the way. Very impressive.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for sure.
Yeah. And we're so well located for this, for kids who, let's say, want to come back for band or sing in the choir or get back for practice after their
They
classes.
could jump on their bike.
They really
or run
can.
down the road. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
There were a reason they kept trying to give us the old pride push. Oh, you're the first ones, and we know why we're the first ones because it's right next to your campus. So, but it's been great, and the people there have been very responsive. Same as LTC. Super great to work with.
That's great.
Any other questions?
Lee, are these programs, are they accessible, like for the requirements and whatnot? Are they on the website or?
Yep,
Okay,
yep. We plug both through our weekly communications with parents and students.
I guess if I wanted to, I want to research it.
Oh, sure, yeah,
So
there's a,
I would best
absolutely.
be able to do that.
I can get you, or get Jason and Pam the link to send you for the Rising Phoenix website, I know for sure.
College here now would not be because it's starting in the fall.
Yeah.
So that
Okay,
would be
so that's-
forthcoming.
How long has the Rising Phoenix been?
This will be the second cohort, so one full year as of June.
Okay,
If you wanted to find out more about College Here Now, you could probably go on Sheboygan South or Sheboygan North's website.
Okay.
They probably have, because we
I mean,
have been a year in there now.
yeah, and I have the flyer
2 years.
that it kind of explains
Yeah.
what it looks like, but it's not as in-depth as the stuff you'll see for Rising Phoenix.
If you Google Rising Phoenix Manitowoc,
Mhm.
Oh, pops up.
they have an allocated link specifically for Manitowoc students.
They gave us a folder of stuff too.
Yeah.
a while back.
do we drive that or do they drive that? Like, did they approach us or did we approach them?
Great question. So I think the original conversation came from just some conversations about how do we partner better.
Okay,
And then the Rising Phoenix was basically, if we could say, brought up through the ashes of, it's too easy.
Yeah, you had.
Was, in all honesty, a true partnership that took about a year for us to commit to. And we did, our Lee's team and myself and UWGB did a lot of heavy lifting early on to try to earmark, for example, who is going to determine the criteria, what, because we have this vision of what we wanted this to be offered to. What will it mean for our school district to lose 25 student leaders within each class? What is the commitment and how are they going to ensure that the 16 and 17-year-olds are going to be successful in their environment, even though they're not here? How do we provide options for them while they come back? So once we did that, the idea actually grew. And when we finally said we were ready to advertise it, it was about February 24th, right? Well, about 2 weeks later, we're shut down. And I honestly did not think we were going to have, so we started to talk about, well, what is the minimum number of students who will participate? And I think the number was 30 something applications. I want to say like 37 kids applied last year. I thought we would have 7. So from that standpoint, we knew then this is something that kids and their families want. They literally had one night that they could go to LTC and then the rest was online. They did the video conferencing, they did the application interviews over online, and they moved forward. This model was shown to us that other school districts use it, other states use it, but we're the first school district in this region to have this program.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's all over the East Coast. and-
Mhm.
So that's how it was modeled, and we saw a few different pieces, and we wanted to do this and wanted to do that. The ones that are modeled in the East Coast and in Texas are 100% funded by the state. So then we tried to write some grants to see if the state would pay for this. And they weren't ready to commit yet. But I do think that down the road that is going to potentially happen. And definitely I've had several conversations with school district leaders about like, how did you pull this off and how do we get involved in this? So it really has been seamless, but part of the seamless piece is their willingness to commit to human resources to ensure the success of our kids. So it's not our counselors doing all the work. They hired coach, something, I don't know what they call it.
Student success.
Student
coach.
success person who was, really, really good. And that student success coach was to check in with our kids and the faculty to make sure it was happening. Now, I do believe Two Rivers and Mishicot have joined. But I also know that their numbers are very small. So they just don't have the interest or capacity. And now you'll see our numbers will be 50 probably here on out, because the best way to advertise is the kids who are there. And in a year, when our Lincoln High School kids graduate and they'll have some kind of a LTC or UWGB tassel, and they'll go, what is that? Yeah, I have an associate's degree, and then I'm getting my high school diploma. You know, that bodes very well for kids. They'll all talk about it, and parents who are trying to send their kids to college will realize their kids have 48 credits or 48 to 60 credits from the University of Wisconsin system, which are going to transfer to another university system, right? Right, and it just, you know, it's an easy sell to adults. The challenge really for our kids that we wanted to make sure again was that we needed them to commit to adult resources, because, you know, you're moving from every day, you know, 8:10 to 3:30 at Lincoln High School to Monday from 8:10 till 9:30, and then 1 o'clock till 2:15, and then Tuesday from. So I think without warning, that was definitely a good idea. So we're, you know, the first of probably many. I think now Green Bay, the school district is working with them on this program. I've had a lot of conversations with them. But I think it will, again, just continue to get great momentum from our kids and moving forward.
Is there a possibility down the road that this could be extended into for seniors who maybe didn't take advantage of it in their junior year? I mean, it would obviously create an associate's degree, but like that they might become interested and get some of that college credit under their belt.
Yeah, and I think the uniqueness of it is that it'll grow as we grow into it. I think, you know, our kids and their desires, and you know, we talked about the pathways and the different ways they can become successful. You know, and it's a great conversation to have, because really at the high school level, their choices drive what we do. So, you know, it's no different here. And if we're getting kids who are saying this is an opportunity that we'd like to have, you know, who knows where it goes, but, you know, we'll keep monitoring our success and our data and make sure that our kids are being successful, and that that our partnership is also there. And I know one of the important questions Mark asked when we talked about cohort number 2 was, we've been super excited and pleased with the level of support that you've given our kids. And just know, if we're doubling down, we got to have that same level of support, right? If you're adding 25 kids in the mix, you've had a success coach. Does that mean we get to, you know, like, because we got to take care of our kids, and they have to, you know, one of the things they do is they meet with this coach, you know, periodically, and they check in individually. And so it's a lot more support per se than you get as a normal college freshman, right? And you need to do that because they're 16 years old, and we got to make sure they know and understand what they're getting into. So I would say anything's always possible, but we always drive things by what kids want. And
the other focus is they're in cohorts, but they're not all taking the same schedule,
Right.
if that makes sense. But the cohorts and the schedules are driven so that they can get the associate's degree. So if I were to do that right now, I wouldn't be able to do that, because the way the scheduling goes is they're going to take the UW students first, and then after the UW students, I'll take part-time people. So the part-time high school kids would likely not get consecutive semester programming that they need, because those courses are full. The beauty of the Rising Phoenix is they register with the students, the college students. And so they get the courses, right, that they need to move forward. There isn't any conflicts, because they're the ones that are driving it. That's a key component to it. Otherwise, if I went there by myself, unless I was a full-time student, I might be able to take, you know, let's just say Psychology 101, but second semester, this next psychology class is full, and I wouldn't be able to get it till who knows when, right? So I'd have to take something else. Well, what else do I take? They have charted the system for us for first semester, second semester, first semester, second semester, to make it work. And that's a key component to it. Whereas in the college here and now, they're enrolling in our courses during our schedule. So they're not competing against outside sources to do that. So that's the beauty of this. You know, kids can take courses right now at UW or at LTC or through many different programs, but generally they can't take courses that we offer. Well, they can, but we're not going to pay for it. Right? How's that sound? So that for you to take just, you know, geometry at a UW or LTC, we're not going to pay for that because you can take it at our system. And likely they're going to have a hard time getting it because that course is going to be taken by all of their full-time students, whatever system it is.
So when they get their associate's degree, what is it in? Is it just a basic associate's degree because it's all the like
General.
General ed, yeah.
the general ed
They
classes?
can earmark it towards science or
Okay.
whatever, but it's a gen ed
Okay,
associate's degree.
that makes sense. So,
Yep, sets them up for moving
yeah,
on.
whatever they've used to do
Yep.
in that. Okay. Nice.
Any other questions?
See, my only other question is, and I don't want to spend time talking about it here, but I'm wondering, are you the person to talk to if I want to know about how kids get into different tracks? So meaning, you know, a Rising Phoenix or you know, I kind of want to understand the process of, you know, 9th grade, 8th grade, like when does that all happen where they, and how does the guidance department kind of do that to?
Yep.
So would you be the appropriate person
Sure.
to talk to, or is there someone else that does
Yeah,
that?
I can walk you through that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we have a 4-year planning process that is based off of, but yeah, I can go through with that.
Okay.
too.
All right, then the last thing, and I don't know if you want to stick around or not, Lee, but the last thing that I've asked Pam and Jason to do is just to give an overview of what their office does and the functions. You know, we have Angela who deals with finance, and we have Joyce who works with HR, and really the student learning office does some really unique things. So I asked Jason and Pam to just kind of walk through what they do, talk through some of the acronyms that we often use and you'll hear during the board meetings that maybe, you know, where's my dictionary kind of thing, but to be able to walk through some.
Thank you all.
Thank
you, Lee.
My son had a baseball practice at Halverson, and I
Oh.
told him to walk here, so I'm gonna go outside and make sure he made it. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, yes, thank you. So, Student Learning Office, Pam and I will be presenting, but I think it's always important to note that it's not just Pam and Jason, right? We have the honor of working with many, many people that support all this work. So we broke this down into 4 categories. As you see, I have hard copies if you'd like to take notes, but it's in the board book as well. And those categories on the left here are teaching, learning, assessment, and we call it Teachnology. So I'm going to go over teaching, and then I'll pause for any questions, and then Pam will take over learning. So the first bullet there is our student learning liaisons. We work, that's that teacher leader group. Sometimes we call them the SLLs. So that's one of those acronyms, student learning liaisons. And that's a group of teacher leaders that really represent every content area and grade band. So the example I give is we have a teacher leader at SLL for mathematics at the elementary level. We have a middle level SLL for mathematics and then a high school SLL. And that's replicated by content area where applicable. And what I mean by where applicable, we have world language SLLs at the middle and high school, not elementary. And we meet with the student learning liaison group once a month. And the primary focus of that time is really providing professional development around the professional learning community model. So we're supporting their work on using data in a collaborative manner to have discussions about where students are and driving conversations about next steps. So that's the professional development that we provide monthly to that group of teacher leaders. We also do a summer institute with those folks. It's usually a 2-day event in August. We've been very fortunate to be able to bring in some international speakers, and they really work to inspire these folks in August and set the stage for the year. This year, we're looking at, again, centered around the professional learning community model, but delving in and talking more about assessment. That's how we want to focus on that. Lose track, but I think it's about 33 teacher leaders from across the district, 33, 35 folks that really we rely heavily on to support teaching and learning. Pam and I also supervise and evaluate all the building principals. So we split those, and that entails connecting with building principals regularly in their building or virtually now, doing observations of like staff meetings and things that they facilitate, giving them feedback, supporting what their SMART goals are for their building for the year, and just working through any topics that they want to talk about. The next one says MPSD and private school title services. So there are 4 main titles, and title is federal funds that we receive in the district. Title 1 is really focused on literacy and mathematics, and it's governed by the number of free and reduced lunch percentages. Title 2 is really provided to offer professional development. It's focused on professional development. Title 3 is really focused for our English language learners. So it's really driven by the number of students that we have in that subgroup, and the funds come along with that to support the teaching and learning of those students. And then Title 4 is new-ish for us. Title 4 is a bigger category, more broad category. There's 3 areas that they ask us to focus on. One is well-rounded. And I always think of well-rounded as not math and not literacy, because that's Title 1. Another area is health and safety and wellness. And then the 4th is technology. And technology that they really ask us to focus on are things that get in the students' hands, not like routers and servers. So Pam and I work to navigate the title services in our buildings in MPSD. And we also support those services in our private schools in our county. Today, for example, we held an end-of-year meeting with our private school leaders, kind of closing out the year and thinking about what next year will bring. And one of the things that they'll work on in the summer is we've created this program plan development, continuous improvement model similar to our principals. So they'll work through a data dig, these private school principals, and that'll drive how they spend their money next year. So we're working to support that work as well. Next is math coaches. So we have, I think, unique opportunity to have math coaches. We currently have at least a 0.5 or 1.0 math coach in 4 of our 6 elementary schools. So Jefferson and Franklin have full-time math coaches. And then Madison and Monroe share one 50-50. We currently have a math coach position posted 50-50 for Riverview and Jackson for next year. So we'll have a 0.5 or more in every elementary school next year. And those folks have done a wonderful job. You've seen in some of our showcases supporting Bridges implementation, but more importantly, or equally importantly, they've been really delving into classroom collaborative meetings, that PLC, the Professional Learning Community model, supporting those data-driven conversations. And the data is showing, our student data is showing it's working. So we're excited about that. The next one is a hyphen there because we have some dean of students and student support liaisons. So we call them the DOSs or the SSLs to keep everyone confused. And those folks are in 8 of our buildings. And those folks really support, their primary focus is on character development. And we want those folks to build character development systems that are good for students, but also allow our principals to be in classrooms and supporting SMART goals. So they're really working in concert with those building leaders. And we have several that are 50-50 split, kind of like those math coaches. At the middle and high school, they're 0.5 or 1.0s at the high school. So I'm going to stop there and ask any questions about those first topics there. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Again, we work hard to support our English language learners, those teachers. We have 13 EL teachers. That's another acronym, right? EL. And those teachers really work with a group of students that need support in their language acquisition, really focusing on literacy and language acquisition. And Pam does the lion's share of that work, navigating staffing and providing professional development or coordinating professional development. Really, again, founded in how we will use data to create goals and then do the work with the students in each building. We also work with our library folks. So we have 9 library professionals. The only building that doesn't have 1.0 is McKinley Academy. So one of our library folks from the elementary spends about a quarter of her time there supporting the library there. And we meet with these folks once a month, give them updates about everything in the district, but also support their work, whatever they need to do great things in the library. We really talk about how we want libraries to be the epicenter of schools. We want kids to be engaged, checking out books, but also a cool place to hang out, read, do some homework, do some other things. We put some coding kits. So those Title IV dollars, we purchased some things that students can engage in and learn coding. Those are in libraries. So we want those just to be cool places for students to hang out, learn, and engage in some other activities. We also do a lot of K-12 professional development. So we work with CSAs, CSA 6 and CSA 7. We work with the Math Learning Center, who really supports Bridges. We work with, those are primary, CPM, which is our college preparatory math for the 6 through 12. But we're coordinating folks that come into our district, but we also coordinate some professional development that we coordinate or facilitate teacher leaders, primarily around math, literacy, professional learning communities. That's primary. And it also extends to our reading teachers and EL teachers as well. We have a catalog going out tomorrow that will afford all K through 12 teachers opportunities throughout the summer. So it will create a catalog that's modeled kind of after our summer school catalog for kids, and teachers will be able to take a look at all the offerings and make some selections, which they're compensated for. And that's the work that we coordinate during the summer and replicate, especially on those in-service days throughout the year.
Jason, are the teachers required to have a certain amount of professional development outside of those in-service days, or is that voluntary, or how does that work?
Yep, strictly volunteer.
Okay.
So we have great turnout, I would say, in the summer. I think we're kind of crossing our fingers this year. We know our teachers need to walk away from this. So that catalog will go out tomorrow, just a Google form for our teachers to submit their interest. We'll see, but we're hopeful. But we also realize that people need to step away this summer, especially. Fiscal oversight. Pam and I really have oversight, facilitation, and/or facilitation in some major budgets. We look at and navigate the technology budget, and that supports all the things I'll talk about later. But everything that's connected to technology, we navigate that budget for the district. We have a student learning office budget. We've really worked hard to transform the use of to really support some of that PD. We made a commitment early to using those dollars to support the professional development across the district. And then the oversight, not facilitation, we provide some oversight of those building budgets, working with principals. And the student learning liaisons, those SLLs, have a small budget that they can use at their discretion, so we have oversight of that as well. What questions about teaching before we turn it over to Pam?
I just have one. I was wondering with the professional development in August, that camp that you bring in speakers and so forth for, why do we only offer that to the SLLs? Why not extend that to all the teachers? Unless there's something that's only appropriate for SLLs, but does that ever get extended or can it be?
Yeah, we do extend it beyond the SLLs. We extend it to reading teachers, those deans of students, SSLs, EL teachers. We have not extended it to the masses yet, just because we're governed by facilities. We were housing it at Silver Lake. This year we'll be at UW Manitowoc Green Bay. So we want to provide a unique opportunity for those teacher leaders. And so we've broadened it, but not to the masses yet.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. And principals go as well.
Some of that is to set the stage too for the work that those teacher leaders do over the course of the year, both in some of their building work that they're doing, and then on the staff development days when they're helping to facilitate some professional development for their particular teams. They use some of the concepts. So last year they talked a lot about teaming structures and how to just kind of really build a collaborative process. And many of those folks use those strategies with the teams over the course of the year. So,
Well, and that's what I assumed, that you did accept that. Why not offer it to all teachers so they have a leg up on it and understand the concept before the SLLs even meet with everyone? I just see that as an advantage, but I don't know exactly what's being shared with them and what speakers are coming in or what they're talking about either. So just an idea.
We have had the good fortune to partner with Silver Lake in the past, and they've sent some of their staff to those sessions, which is nice to have those folks mingle in with ours. And then we've extended that same opportunity to our partners at UW Green Bay. So we're hoping that some of the staff members will take us up on the offer. But it's nice to see them working together, talking about those unique lenses and perspectives they bring. Any other questions? Teaching, that block there. Okay, we'll turn it over to Pam for learning and assessment.
we champion the milestones of success, which really are those markers of college career and community readiness. And so taking a look at what are some things that kind of those benchmarks that we want students to achieve in order to really know that they are on track for that. And it's a little bit different than a goal setting process in the fact that, you know, we're kind of saying if students can get to these markers, we know that we have a sense of their readiness for these things. And then we set goals around some of that data as a part of both the action planning process and then even some of our work at the district level as well. I heard Jason talk a little bit more about the professional learning community process, but our team spends a lot of time talking about what are the next steps in growing that across the district, everything from how we're allocating resources to the professional development, to who we are reaching out to gain our expertise on, build our expertise and capacity on that. It's been a part of our team's work on so many fronts that now, we have folks that we work with also doing it in their smaller pockets. And so you'll hear like the library team, for example, talking about how they've become a professional learning community and they're taking over some of that. So our goal is that eventually we won't have to do as much professional development or building capacity because people are doing it and they're kind of working through, and then they will start to ask for more. Like, what do I do to grow? How do I keep my skill set going? So we're seeing some success on that front. Continuous improvement facilitation really reflects the process that we set up for our building leaders to annually dig through their data with their leadership teams and then set their action plans for the year. And so we asked them to really focus in on the trends and patterns that they're seeing in their data. We are pushing them more to continue to look at subgroups of students because we are seeing that the state is pushing us to look at subgroup data. There's been some changes in some of the accountability reporting at the state level. And so pushing them to really think about that and making sure that all students are moving forward and really looking at those students that are struggling the most and try to make sure that they're moving forward. And so they develop their annual goals, both looking at a student achievement goal and then how are we going to grow the teacher instructional practice in order to help. A teacher, when I say teacher, it also could be some leadership as well. It just kind of depends on what the goal is. So they will engage in that process. Typically sometime July, August is typically the time that they bring their leadership teams together to do that. And then Jason and I spend time with them along with our colleagues in the student learning office, just going over their plans, making sure that they have the quality and depth that they need to be clear for the staff. And then throughout the course of the year, then we work with them when we have them at our administrative meetings, talking about what data are you collecting towards those goals and what data are you seeing that is giving an indication things are on track. And if they're not on track, what kinds of things are you putting in place to help with that? So that is that whole continuous improvement process. We had to fine tune it a little bit as we get a little bit more information from the state. The data comes in a little bit different, but I think we've got a pretty good process now that we don't have to tweak it a whole lot from year to year. But that's often what you see in the showcases is they're talking about some of those things that they've set up as part of their school plans. And then we coordinate the student information system. We use Infinite Campus. So our office really navigates the oversight of that. I meet weekly. Thank God. I meet weekly with the Infinite Campus person. So she answers all my questions. You know, we have troubleshooting that we need to do to make sure our data is reporting correctly to the state. You know, we just have processes and systems that we need to continue to develop. And so meet with them on a regular basis to talk through that. And they also keep us updated then on new features within their system, new products that they have available. But it really is a huge piece of what we need to do because what follows that is state reporting. And all of our data is drawn from that system into state reporting. And so we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible on the upfront end because it's getting less and less easy to make corrections after the fact. So the state, from a state reporting lens, does give us these snapshot windows, they call them, and they tell you get your data correct before the snapshot, because once that's taken, that's kind of the picture that feeds into funding, it feeds into our accountability systems. And so it's kind of a little bit more high stakes than it has been in the past. So we spend quite a bit of time working through that and trying to just stay somewhat ahead of the game. Troubleshooting is not always easy to do that, but they're very complimentary of the fact that we're doing a pretty good job compared to other schools. So I take pride in that. So that's kind of the big pieces that fit under learning. Any questions about those?
I was just wondering where you guys house the data that you're collecting. Is it, do you do Excel or is it just in this program, the Student Information System program?
The data, when I'm referring to data, it's student, like our student information. So everything from our demographic information on students, you know, the attendance, behavior, all of that is in our student information system. The actual assessment information is housed by the state at the state level. So it's in a system called WiseDash. And that is, there's a public piece of it, and then there is a school district level. The public level is really kind of a generalized piece. What our teams and our buildings dig into is the data within the district level, which allows them to get down to the student level and really see student by student how things are occurring. So that's the system in which that information is housed.
Just one, I mean, would be helpful for me when I'm looking at something like when let's say a new curriculum or new initiative comes, is to look at data.
Mhm.
And I didn't know if there's some sort of a dashboard that can be created or something for us to see, you know, these kind of key performance indicators kind of things, you know, what is our attendance? How many students do we have? We did this initiative and this is the grades that we're seeing, things like that. So I don't know if that's easily accessible to collect that data, or it's there and it just needs to be organized in a way, or.
A lot of it is already in the Wise Dash public portal.
Okay.
There's a lot of information there. And so,
How current is it? I mean, how?
you know, usually it's a year, you know, like we'll go through now, we didn't have some data. It just really depends. Like last year, we didn't do the assessment, statewide assessments. So that would be 18-19. But enrollment information, demographic information, some of the information on attendance rates and those kinds of things would be current for the 19-20. We haven't ended the year, so they wait until the end of a school year to catch the snapshot for us. And so that's really probably the biggest dashboard warehouse kind of piece. It's not really always easy. I mean, we can get data, like we can provide information and pull it from our system, but there's not a pathway to pull it into something else. Right now, we don't have another system that we pull it. It goes right from Infinite Campus to the state.
We typically would give the curriculum committee an update around those student milestones of success, both the current year and longitudinal. As Pam mentioned, many of the assessments that were foundational to those milestones did not give last year, and we won't give this year. So we won't be in a position to give that update, but we would typically give that update.
Do you have an old one that I could just see that you've put it out before? Just send to me.
Yes,
Email
it's
it.
just two plus years old, but
That's
I'll most definitely share that with you.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And as we get through, Stacy, around October, November, the state will release the report cards, which really are, we'll get a district level and then each school has a report. And then we typically provide the board kind of with a summary overview and talk through then that data, because there's so many facets to it,
Right.
that you get a better picture of kind of what is being reported to the state on many of those achievement indicators. And they do look at attendance. They don't look at behavior as part of that process. They look at attendance and achievement and then graduation rate as a part. Okay. So we'll be able to do that. We have to kind of wait until they unembargo, they call it. It sounds so secretive, but they tell us when it's unembargoed and then we can present it to the board, because we'll do it in a public format.
And if we wanted something like more real time, like you could run a quarterly report just based on the information that we have here at the district prior to the snapshot, could that be seen?
We can run a report or pull information on like attendance and some of those pieces. The actual, like we just finished our statewide assessments. That information is not available. We won't have access to any of that information until.
What about like just like average GPA, or based on in math, in science, in reading, things like that?
We can in the like at the high school level where we calculate GPA. We don't calculate that at the other levels, so that information we wouldn't be able to pull.
Are they doing they still do grades?
They
though,
do
right?
grades, yeah, they do
So
grades.
you could do like a percentage of how many A's, B's, C's, or percentage points, or
Yeah,
is that data collected on
It's-
every student and combined like in a cumulative type of way for each school?
it's not collected in like a dashboard type way or an easy, report way. It's in our information system, because that's the system through which our report cards are generated, our transcripts are generated. So it all gets entered in there. Teacher grade books are part of Infinite Campus, so it's all a part of that system. But there's not a set report that you can run that says, here's all of the A's at the elementary level, or that kind of thing. That it's that would be more manual to
Okay.
have to pull that information forward. We can always look into it. If there's a question, I mean, there's a lot of data, a lot of information,
Right.
but yeah.
It
if there's
just
something
would be helpful when, I've just looked at some of the past, meeting minutes and I just don't see any data. And it would be nice to see, just data of when we do an initiative or something that we've added or, the showcases don't provide data. So when we've implemented something at a school, I guess I'd like to know the success rate of that, quarterly rather than wait a year and look at that. And that's just my personal preference, is to have lots of data in a dashboard kind of way to look at to see, are we moving in the right direction?
Right.
So,
Appreciate that insight. Okay, speaking of assessment, our office, we always call it Assessment Palooza, and this year it has been an Assessment Palooza. We have been testing since
Well, it's because it's been so spread out too.
Yeah, I said it's
Yeah.
funny because the state helped us by extending the windows. Well, we are still testing. We have till this Friday is the end of finally of statewide assessment. Our EL learners still are assessing up until Friday, and then that window closes. So even though it's nice that we had this extra time, it's been a long time. So but our office coordinates that. We do have mandated statewide assessments, and our EL learners take the Access assessment. And that is just an annual assessment of how well they're developing their English language skills. And then eventually, if a student develops at a high enough level, a level 5 or 6, they end up exiting from our EL programming. We monitor them for 2 years after they're considered exited. So those students are still, even though they're not officially EL, they are still on our rosters as somebody that those 13 folks that Jason mentioned have to keep track of. So that is their annual assessment. Typically, it starts in about December. This year they pushed it into spring and waited until they knew a little bit more about what they were going to do with the other pieces. I will say we call it a statewide assessment, but that's actually a federal assessment. So it's a little bit different than some of the other assessments, which have an opt-out option for parents. The Access test does not. It's a federal assessment, so parents are not allowed to opt out of that, taking that assessment. Our 3rd through 8th graders and then our 10th graders in social studies take the forward exam. And that is their academic achievement measure in math and reading, science, and social studies. Our students that qualify as alternate assessment students, we have about 1% of our student population that takes an alternate assessment instead of the traditional, and that's called the dynamic learning map. Those students actually have standards that are aligned to the state standards, but a little bit different because of the level that they're at. But that provides some information on whether or not they are growing as well. And that data does get brought into all of the other statewide achievement data. So when we get the school report card, the dynamic learning map results for those students are factored in as part of that achievement profile. Our juniors take the ACT, and our 9th and 10th graders take the Aspire, and that's their assessments of their proficiency in reading, ELA, math, and science. And then we also are required by the state to administer a reading readiness assessment, and we use PALS as that assessment. And that is given from 4K all the way through grade 2, and that's in a week. So that's our mandated assessments that we administer. We also work with our buildings to develop an assessment calendar that kind of reminds them of here's when these things are coming around. And then also talk with our buildings about what are other assessment opportunities that they can use both, on a they've got a population of students that they want to assess or individual students that they need to assess to get more data on, they can use some of those. So we help to support that. And then we have the student and parent engagement surveys, similar to the staff engagement survey that you heard about in a recent board meeting. We do a student engagement survey and a parent engagement survey, and that information is used as part of that action planning process as well with the schools. So they get that data, and then it provides them with some insights into some things that they can be doing, both working with students to make sure students are feeling part of the learning community, and then making sure that parents are feeling a part of the learning community as well. So it feels like it's so small, but it's huge.
It's big.
Are those surveys done or included by the same third party
Yes.
vendor that the teaching staff or the staff?
Yeah, parents get an email, school perceptions.
Oh, that's right.
Parents get an email that goes out to them, and then we do have the capacity, our interpreters work with families that need the information translated to be able to participate. They work with them to do that. And then students have, previously, we've gotten like little cards and the teachers help the kids log in. This year, they tried doing emails to the students and then use the card kind of password system as a backup plan to let teachers really work with their classes to participate and take that. So they take it, and then we get the results back in report form. We haven't gotten those back yet. Those closed.
They were just down on one day.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
not too
just
long
a
ago, so it'll
break.
be a little bit before we get the information back.
So Pam, how did it go with the virtual learners coming in to do their standardized assessment? Did that go well?
Yeah, I would say we actually, for what it could have been, we had a very good testing season. We didn't have a lot of students not participate. I will say that I think we had more parents this year opt out of statewide assessment than have previously. And I think the state understood that that might be the situation, but I think I was pleasantly surprised with the number of students that our schools, across all of those assessments were able to bring in, and they made it safe for kids to come in, tried to coordinate schedules that really were accommodating as much as possible. So kudos to the staff in the buildings, and kudos to our parents who allowed us to have the opportunity to gather the data on the students, because it's so important for us to be able to have that in the planning process. We look into next year and what we can do to make sure our students are moving forward.
Good. All right, Jason, drive us home.
All right, here we go. The last section is really Teachnology, and some big rocks, we call them, as part of Teachnology is the infrastructure. So that's the things like the routers, and we have servers inside of many of the closets and libraries and hallways, and wires, so the things that we can touch. That's the infrastructure. Working with, I think, we heard a presentation from our Heartland partner, working on a long-term plan of maintaining infrastructure, but also growing infrastructure to make sure that we can meet the needs of every student and staff. Security, we see things in the news, and security is important to us. So we're constantly talking about what are the security measures that we need to implement and grow in for students and staff, and keep our data safe and our students safe. The service platforms, those are just all the different platforms that our staff and students use, whether it's Infinite Campus, Teachnology Group is behind the scenes supporting it, whether it's Google and all the pieces and components of Google, and that's replicated, right? All the platforms our teachers use to engage learners. There's many components behind the scenes that the Teachnology Group are supporting. Application is really, I think about anything you see in the classroom, right? Students have a Chromebook, Teachnology is touching it. Teachers using an interactive whiteboard, some component that the Teachnology Group is working towards to support. Laptops, presentation stations, anything in the classroom, we're there to serve and support. And then the last one is, our department really supports website and social media coordination. So things that you see out there on Twitter and Facebook, many come from our student learning office. And we do work to do at least twice a year review of our website and every link on the website. That's pretty time intensive, but we want to keep it fresh. And so we work hard at that. That is Teachnology.
So Jason, I know we deployed all those Chromebooks this year. Are we pulling back and going back to the old system for next year then? I think it's like 6th and 9th and whatever the grades are, we're making them this year.
So this week is our first week of beginning to collect. So this week we are collecting Chromebooks from 4K, K1 and 2. And week by week, through the week after graduation, we have a chunked collection process. After graduation, we'll collect all the virtual learners' devices and some of our staff that have Chromebooks. We're going to touch every one of those devices. We want to clean them up, power wash them, and prepare them. Some of them, I don't know what these things mean, but their OS is expired, this operating system. So some of those devices will come out of the inventory. And so we'll get them prepped. The plan now is to have 6 through 12 will be 1-to-1. 5, 4, 3 will be 1-to-1, but in the classroom, taken home by teacher discretion. So we'll have 1-to-1 in the classroom. If there's a project that needs to be navigated, to have the teacher discretion. Below that grade level, we'll have classroom sets. So the team will be working hard to get those devices on carts for the elementaries, and then in the buildings, middle and high school for deployment after the first day of school. They'll deploy usually homerooms.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I don't think we gave them back last year for the wash.
we did not.
And,
There's so many unknowns
Yeah.
about things we could or should not touch.
right.
So we just
Right.
told folks to keep
So
them.
that'll be good. They'll all get a nice update.
Yes.
And some of them, as Jason indicated, are beyond their lifespan, I guess.
Sure, sure.
So that becomes a security piece,
Oh.
and so we have to take them off of our system because they're no longer secure. So it's not that they're not necessarily usable, but they just won't be able to be connected to our system in order to keep things secure for kids.
In years prior, we would collect at certain grade levels. So seniors would give their devices back and either 9th or 10th. And what we would do with those is clean up the ones and put them back in the cycle. The ones that were questionable, we created what we call loaners. So we put all these loaners in the elementaries and middle schools to support classroom activities, assessment of Palooza. And what we did last March 12th or whatever it was, is grab all those loaners, and those became the ones we handed out to our elementary students. So we want to get those back, clean them up, pull some out that shouldn't be out anymore. And then we'll get them back in the classrooms and in the hands of students.
Well, I appreciate you all going through. I learned stuff, and I've been sitting on this committee now for a couple of years, so this is cool. Very cool. All right. If there's no other questions, that's the end of our agenda. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Thank you all. It's time to go home and see what's been made for dinner.
It's cooking.
Hopefully something's been made for dinner.
Mhm.
Here's hoping.
Hot dogs and grilled macaroni and cheese.